Hey y'all, this is Jessie. I'm going to walk you through a detailed explanation of how for loops and looping through arrays work in JavaScript. And I've got a fun little cartoon I made to help explain it. This is Dr. For Loop. Want to just let you know that I don't advocate for her practices. I can't tell you that she's the best veterinarian in the world, but she's going to let us check out her cat clinic and use it as an example of how for loops work. So let's start with, we need an array to iterate over, okay? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna say, let cat kennel, because we're going to be using her cat kennels, Dr. For Loop's cat kennels. And she currently has 3 cats and their names are Lucy, Fred, and Sweetie. And these are her patients. And if we go here, we can see let cat kennel, Lucy, Fred, and Sweetie. And these are the indexes that we can access them through in the array. And there's Lucy, Fred, and Sweetie. So if I said console.log, cat kennel 0, what do you think I'm gonna get? Cat kennel 0, do you think I'm gonna get Lucy? I know, it was very surprising for me too. So when we do a for loop, the idea is to create a loop that goes through numbers of the indexes in the array so that we can perform actions on each of the items in the array, okay? So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to do for, and don't worry, I'm going to walk you through what each of these mean in just a second. Equals less than So let's look at this because this is where people get a little confused. We got this mysterious I variable right here, and then the greater than, less than, and the I plus plus, and then we jump right into these actions. And I think that's where people get a little confused because it's like these 3 things and they're right next to each other and they're not extremely readable, right? Like it's not really clear what they're doing. So we're going to talk about it. So we're saying, we're declaring a variable. We're saying I is 0. What is I? It could literally be anything. We could replace I with caret, 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 and it would still do the same thing, okay? Like all variables, it doesn't really matter what it is as long as it's the same all the way through, right? But in this case, if you think about I as standing for index, 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 right? I want you to think about it like that, okay? Let index equal 0, while the index is less than cat kennel.length, index plus plus. So increment this number here, and then log cat kennel index. Now that probably makes a little more sense, right? Because we know that this here is the index, right? Zero, 1, 2. Those are the indexes of each cat. 0, 1, 2. So if we call that index, then it might make a little more sense. It might help you understand a little bit better. If we simplify it to I, though, it looks a little bit cleaner. It makes everything a little bit shorter because you have to write it a lot. So we're going to think about that as index. That's just how we're going to think about it. So cat kennel index, right? So let the index equal 0 because arrays start at 0. And cat kennel.length is the length of the array. What's the length of the array? 1, 2, 3. So we don't want to go up to 3 because the index only goes up to 2 because the index starts at 0, 0, 1, 2. So we always want it to be 1 less. So we say, well, the index is less than cat kennel.length. Increment it by 1 for every loop. So it's going to go through, it's going to do this, and then it's going to increment it by 1, and then it's going to do it again until it gets to just under the length. So if we go ahead and run this, we'll see that that's what it did. And we can also do console.log I. This way we can get a little clearer idea here. So we're seeing I equals 0, right? And it's logging I, and then it's logging cat kennel I, Lucy, right here. And then it's starting again because it's still less than the length. And it's logging I, which is now 1 because it just incremented. And it's logging cat kennel I, which is now, the index is 1, so we're on Fred, right? And then we're going to go through and start again because we're still less than the length, which is 3. And we're going to log I, which is 2. And we're going to log cat kennel I, which is Sweetie, and we're going to increment it. And now we're equal now. We're 3. So it's no longer less than the length. So it's not going to do it again. That breaks out of our loop and we're done. So that's the basics of a loop. Now we're going to go a little bit further. We're going to do an if statement in here and see how that reacts with it. So I've got an if statement that's going to do, it's an if else statement. It's going to check which cat we're on and perform actions only if we're on that right cat. So I'm just going to set this all the way up because I know that I want three of these. So what we want to say is if cat kennel I is equal to Lucy, then we're going to console.log. We'll say checked cat kennel I temperature. Okay, so we want the vet to check her temperature if it's Lucy. And if it's Fred, I don't know, did you guys see Fred? We're gonna skip Fred. He's scary. I mean, look at him. There's something wrong with that cat, okay? Either that or there's something very wrong with the vet. I'm not sure which, but he scares the staff. That's what I heard. I've heard rumors about Fred. They won't work on him until he's asleep. So we're going to skip him till he falls asleep. Okay, and what we're doing with this little bit of script here is we're adding their name in. So if it's Lucy, then cat kennel I should be the name Lucy. So we're going to add in a script here that says else if cat kennel I is equal to Anne. Lagging. There we go. Console.log And say, this should never fire. There is no Anne. Oh my God, what happened to Anne? Was there supposed to be an Anne at this clinic? I'm very suspicious of this clinic right now, okay? We're gonna move on though, okay? I'm gonna say if cat kennel I is equal to Sweetie, we're just gonna check on Sweetie, okay? See how she's doing. Okay, we're gonna run this. Make sure it works. It says check Lucy's temperature. I have an extra. There we go. We're gonna skip Fred. He's scary. Check on Sweetie. Okay. So you can see Anne never fires because there is no Anne. We're going to go through here and we're going to look at this in detail. Okay. So you can see I is the index. I did point that out here. And you can also use var I. That's the older JavaScript standard. Both will work. Okay. So if the I, right, the index is cat kennel I equal to Lucy. So it's literally saying, check what cat kennel I is, right? Cat kennel I, in this case, on the first loop, it's going to be Lucy, right? Because Lucy is the first one. She's index 0. So it's going to log, check Lucy's temperature, right? And then because this is an if statement, it's going to break out and start the loop over again. Okay, and it's going to say else if cat kennel I is equal to Fred, then console that, log that. But first, what it's going to do is it's going to check if it's Lucy because that comes first. It's going to run through this whole script every single time, right? So we've started the loop over again. It's not going to say Lucy and then on the second loop, go straight to Fred. It doesn't work like that. It's going to say here, Lucy. And then it's going to start over and it's going to say, is it Lucy? No. Is it Fred? Yes. Let's skip Fred. Look at him, he's frightening. There's something wrong with that cat, okay? So we know it's Fred. We've got our message here. We're gonna skip Fred, he's scary. We're gonna go into our next loop and it's going to, once again, it's not gonna go straight to Sweetie, right? It's going to say, if it's Lucy, it's not Lucy. If it's Fred, it's not Fred, right? If it's Anne, this time it's going to hit Anne. And there is no Anne. We don't know what happened to Anne, but it's not Anne. So it's going to skip that one too. And then it's going to go to Sweetie. And it's going to say, yes, this is Sweetie. So now we're going to run this and we're going to check on Sweetie. So it's just important to remember that we are running this script 3 times because there are 3 elements, right? And it's going to go through, because of the way I've set this up, progressively 1 more each time, except for the last time where it's going to go through 2 more because of Anne, who is missing, which is frightening, right? So we know that there is no Anne, so we're skipping that one. And oh my God, she had kittens. Okay, I told you, you can't trust this bet. So we're gonna say, okay, what does it mean now if we have kittens in here? Okay, what does this mean for our data up here? It's no longer Lucy, Fred, and Sweetie. it's we have a subarray, right? Inside our array. So we're going to have to change our data slightly. Also, I just want to point out, I think there's something going on between these two. I'm just saying. I have my suspicions. Mom does not look thrilled to have kittens. And he does not look thrilled that Mom has kittens, so it's pretty sus. Okay, so we're going to start this over again because now we know that there's some new data to deal with, okay? So what we're going to do now is we're going to say, we know that there can be more than one cat in here, okay? So I'm going to change all of these to arrays. We're just going to wrap all of these. Okay, and now we know that inside Sweetie's cat kennel, there is also kitten 1, kitten 2, and kitten 3. And this makes things a little more complicated because now we have an array within an array. And this is where people get even more confused because what we're going to use is a loop inside of a loop. Okay, so get ready. Brace yourselves. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this out right now so that we can just look at the loop. Okay, so we have our loop right now, and if we continue with it, we can go console.log cat kennel I. Let's just see what it does, right? There we go. Okay, you see it's printing out an array. So what we're going to do is we're going to iterate over this inner array for each of them. Okay. So we're going to create a second loop inside the loop. And this is where people's mind starts spinning. Now, I will say if you have to go like 4 or even 3 levels inside a loop, like if you're nesting loops 3 or 4 levels deep, I'd say you probably need to rethink your data structure and how you're doing your algorithm. I probably wouldn't do that unless you absolutely have to. Just food for thought, right? But the occasional double loop is not the end of the world. And I want to show you how it works. So we're going to do another one. We're going to say let j equals 0. And while j is less than cat kennel I, because this is the subarray now, right? This is cat kennel I, this is cat kennel I, and this is cat kennel I. Dot length j plus plus. Okay, and now here's the question. People are like, well, what does J stand for? And I guess my best answer is Jindex. I don't know. Like, I honestly think that people use J because it comes after I, okay? That's my best answer for you, okay? I mean, it's like I, this is what comes next. It's J, okay? That's all I got for you people. I don't think there's a good answer for that one. Unless you want to go with Jindex. So once again, we have our new variable. We can't use I because I has already been declared. So we're using J because it comes after I. Once again, this could be caret. Doesn't really matter what it is. We are creating a loop that goes over each array inside this array. So we'll talk about that in just a second. And we're incrementing that. And now we're essentially going to do the same if statement. We're just going to modify it slightly, okay? This time we're going to check if the main cat, the first cat, is the right name, right? Boss cat, mom cat, whatever you want to call it. So I'm going to add a 0 to my if statements. This is the first cat in each one, right? Lucy is the first one. She's index 0. Fred is the first one. He's index 0. Sweetie is the first one. She's index 0. Kitten 1 is index 1 of the array inside cat kennel, right? So if we wanted to print out kitten 1, we would say console.log cat kennel 2 1, right? Because this is 0, this is 1, and they're at index 2 inside the main array. So we have to keep these things in mind. And I've made a list of this. So you can see 0, 0. Lucy is 0, 0. Fred is 1, 0. Sweetie is 2. And then her and her kittens are 0 through 3, right? She's 0, and then we got 0, 1, 2, 3, right? So that's where it gets a little bit mind bending with these double loops, but we're going to go through them all. So we're going to change this now because we want to go through each of these kittens. And we're going to say, let's do cat kennel I and then J. So remember, this is I and this is J. So we know that this is going to be 2 because it's not going to get to her until it's 2. And then we want to go through J, which is going to loop through 0 through 3. And then we're going to go, is given vitamins and a checkup. So since they just discovered kittens, it seems like that's the least they should do, right? If we run this, we'll see kitten 1. That's because I console logged it right up there. We're going to check Lucy's temperature. So I0, we've checked her temperature. We're going to skip Fred. He's still kind of scary. I mean, look at him. He looks like he's having a very bad day, okay? He's very shocked to see kittens. I'm pretty sure you see that kitten looks a lot like him. That's why I'm pretty sus. Having suspicions. Fred, you get around. Okay, but then we're looping through. You can see it's skipping Anne again because there is no Anne. But then when we get to Sweetie, it's using I and J to loop through. Sweetie was given vitamins and a checkup. Kitten 1 was given vitamins and a checkup. Okay, so we're going to walk through this with our visual aids, right? So in this first one, it's checking I and 0. So it's checking the temps. Lucy. See, she's got her little thermometer. And then in the second time loop, it's now I equals 1. And once again, we're still checking 0 because we know that we only need to check who the first cat is. So we're skipping Fred because he's scary. Once again, 1, 0, right? But first we had to skip Lucy because he's not Lucy. And then it's going to skip Anne again. So it's going to start at the beginning again. It's going to say this cat here, Sweetie, is not Lucy, is not Fred, is not Anne. Is Sweetie? Yes. Therefore, we need to console.log the name of all of the cats in this kennel and make sure they're given vitamins and a checkup. So that's when we're going to go right here. You can see Dr. For Loop has started by taking Sweetie, the first in the array, right? Sweetie. And she's given her vitamins and a glass of water to take it with as she gives her a checkup. Sweetie just looks like she is done with this whole clinic. Okay. The kittens obviously have fallen asleep after harassing mom. Poor mom. You can see she was not amused. They've taken kitten 1, who is just as enthusiastic about those vitamins as mom was. And then they're going to go through and take kitten 2, who is very much a cat. And then they're going to take kitten 3, who I guess Dr. Forloop's methods are not as completely hopeless as we thought, because they seem to work, at least for one cat in this world. The vitamins are gone and it's drinking the water. So you can't argue with that. Anyway, I hope that kind of demystifies the basics of a JavaScript for loop and a nested JavaScript for loop and how they interact with arrays. I hope you had fun. I hope you liked my ridiculous cat slides. I hope they were amusing. I wonder where Fred and Sweetie are going to go down the road. And I hope you all have a wonderful night.